something that tends to be very popular is the keto cheesecake. For those that don't know, I am Darius of Sugarless Crystals. I run a food blog, and there will be links below. I have plenty of cheesecakes to choose from. I have the no bakes, the classic bakes, you name it. And what do I know? Well, I mean, they just say I'm the king of keto desserts. Well, I mean, it may be a name I gave myself, but there's not many guys out here. But anyway, let's go on, move with the video. You want to know if you've never made keto cheesecake before, or maybe you want to make your own, create your own recipe. I can give you some insights on how to do that and make it the best possible keto cheesecake you can possibly have. Cheesecakes come in two different forms. You have the basic baked keto cheesecake, which is probably going to be your best option if you're an experienced baker, or even if you're like an intermediate around that level. But for those that are in the beginning stage or short on time, the no bake option is always going to be the best. It's going to be the easiest thing to do. When you're dealing with the no bake, me personally, sometimes I won't even deal with the gelatin. I don't think it leaves a flavor, but it's just, it's like, why? I mean, when you stick the cream cheese inside of the refrigerator, it tends to harden back anyway. As long as you don't put too much sour cream in it, you don't have to worry about it just falling all over the place. Some pros and cons when it comes to cheesecakes within keto or low carb, sugar free is, let's start with the cons. We're gonna do the cons first. Some negative things about it is any cheesecake, any form, is gonna be very, very high in calories. I mean, it just is what it is. And when you add a crust, especially something like an almond flour crust, the carbs can get slightly higher because cream cheese does have some carbs within it. And the almond flour is gonna bring carbs within it. The coconut flour is not gonna bring as much, but we'll get into the crust later on. You're definitely gonna have to deal with a whole bunch of calories. Like, I recently just started doing skinny cheesecakes. I have a crustless version as well. But anyway, I started doing skinny cheesecakes because I wanted to bring that same flavor, but I didn't want it to be so calorie dense. Like, man, I mean, those cheesecakes are something different. Now, some pros. The wonderful thing about cheesecake, regular cheesecake and sugar-free cheesecake, is made the same way with the absence of sugar. You still have your cream cheese, you still have your sour cream, and you still have your eggs. Those are the bottom structures of cheesecake. It doesn't work, it doesn't translate over in cakes like that. It's because flour has gluten. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about that with cheesecake because it's just cream cheese. The next pro of it is the flavor. Because of that, all you have to do is just get used to the sweeteners. Everything else is gonna fall in line. Like, you have no other issues whatsoever. It's just gonna be delicious. If you're not new to the channel, you've heard me say several times before, keto cheesecake is the best option for a dessert when you're brand new because it's going to taste very, very similar to what you're used to. Let's talk about the crust. Me personally, I believe in 3 different variations. Now, for those that have nut allergies, I don't do sunflower seed flour. Some people say it bakes the same, but in my experience, that's a lie. No, I mean, no, it doesn't. They say you can do a 1-to-1 to almond flour. Personally, I just don't see it. I've dabbled with it a little bit, and I just, no. But the first crust I want to talk about is almond flour crust. A little bit of almond flour, melted butter, pat it down in your baking dish and bake it. That's pretty much the closest thing you can get to a traditional keto cheesecake crust, or a traditional cheesecake crust rather. I haven't seen anything else like it. Only thing about it is almond flour is just it's calorie dense because it's just crushed up almonds, so it's high fat, and then you're gonna have a lot of carbs to come with it. So you already have the high fat in the cream cheese, the high fat in the butter that you have to use for the crust, and then the high fat almond flour in itself. Now, the best option will be blanched. No, you can use the regular milled almond flour that has the husk. The blanched and the unblanched, that's the difference. One has husk and the other one doesn't. The blanched is always going to be best because the husk can get in the way of bake. Now, when you're dealing with coconut flour is super, super crumbly. I actually have a video on the almond and coconut flour as well, where I talk about how one's far more absorbent than the other one. This is gonna be your issue here. Coconut flour is gonna end up being super crumbly. If you care anything about what the cheesecake looks like when it comes up, the crust is just gonna be all over the place. It's gonna end up being super dry, But if you have a nut allergy, then this is probably gonna be the best thing for you. My favorite cheesecake crust right now, what I will be using for the rest of my cheesecakes that I ever release, is granola. Specifically, grapal. I normally go for the snickerdoodle, but since it's fall season, I mean, I've used apple spice one she has. I'm sorry, I've used Rosie's apple pie. I've used the amaretto pistachio, and I mean, it's just like the easiest way to go. I mean, you take it, you put it in the food processor because it does come with like shredded coconut. You want to mix everything up and you want to break those cookie bits down within it. Add a little butter and pat it down. You don't even have to pre-bake it. The coconut flour and the almond flour one, you have to pre-bake it, but the granola is already done. And it's far less calories and less carbs. And I mean, it provides a perfect crunch. Like the cheesecake is actually crunchy at the end. And that helps with texture like you wouldn't believe. It's like I said, it's my go-to. I don't plan on changing it. If you don't know what grapal is, I've been a fan of grapal for years. Like I said, you can actually save on grapal. I'll put a link below. We definitely love grapal over here. A lot of my followers I've put on with grapal. Like, it's the way to go. And if you follow Keto Connect, which I'm sure you do, they definitely push grapal as well. Now, when it comes to no-bake cheesecakes, as far as an option like grapal or either when I said high-key snacks, using those cookies and crushing those up, that's gonna be what you want to go to. Otherwise, if you're using raw flours like the almond flour or coconut, you're gonna have to bake it. TPH desserts, I want to say that's the name of it. I've seen where they roasted it on the pan, but that still involves cooking of some sort. That's going to be quicker than baking it, but either way, it's still cooking it, like, you know. So if you want to go with a no-bake dessert, your best option is either crustless. I have a key lime cheesecake where I baked it and made it into a cookie kind of thing in a jar. The pre-made cookies like high key, those are definitely going to be your best options if you're going to do the no-bake crust. So the filling, the star of the show, the actual cheesecake itself. Now, the funny thing about when you're baking cheesecakes, what I've noticed is, in my cheesecake, you'll see that I add extra sweeteners. So you want your cheesecake to be super sweet, too sweet, going into the oven. Because when you bake it, those eggs, when they actually form and make the cheesecake hard, it's gonna take away a lot of your sweetness. In the past, I've made cheesecakes from other people, and when I first started experimenting, I didn't put much sweetener in it, and I would get it and I would be like, man, this cheesecake isn't sweet at all. And other people will write me in and say the same thing as well. So when it comes to your sweetness, since it is a dessert, push your sweetness higher, much higher than what you want it to be. Now, over time, you'll learn where you want it to be at. If you follow my recipe, in my personal opinion, that's like a perfect sweetness, like it's never overboard. Now, when you're dealing with a no-bake cheesecake, the sweetness is gonna be where it's gonna be when you're making a cheesecake. You don't have to worry about eggs there because it's no bake, so you don't have to worry about the sweetness changing. So when tasting it, don't make it any sweeter than what you want it to be. But if you're baking, make it sweeter so that way it'll be perfect when after it's finished baking. When it comes to adding in things like chocolate, lemon, things like lemon, and maybe like if you wanted to add like hazelnut, but if you add things like melted chocolate or hard chocolate, like this will alter the end result. Chocolate cheesecake tends to be, the texture is fine. It just tends to be a little more creamy due to the cocoa melting in it. So when you're dealing with a chocolate cheesecake, you could err on the side of no sour cream or lessening the sour cream, because the sour cream pretty much it's just there to soften the cheesecake up. Now, when you're baking it up, no bake cheesecakes, you don't have to worry about baking. That's not an option. Stick it in the refrigerator. Matter of fact, I mean, if it's no bake, after you finish making it, depending on what you want, depending on what your crust is, I would just put it in like a bowl. I mean, why not? Otherwise, I mean, if you want it to be pretty, I get it. You know, you can just stick it in the refrigerator and just let it firm up. But for the bake, some people don't want to crack in their cheesecakes, which I get. Like, I understand. And then some people just don't care. I'm one of the don't care people, but being the fact that I'm a food blogger, I have to make photos. My food photography has to be almost perfect, to be honest. You know, I mean, if you see an ugly photo, you're gonna be like, no, that recipe's not good. So what I've learned over time is I stick my cheesecakes in the oven for 250 degrees for an hour, and then I turn the oven off, leave it in for another hour, and then I pull it out and I let it cool down completely. One key is when you stick your batter in there, make sure you check the pan to make sure you get all your air bubbles out. Those air bubbles are gonna rise to the top. They could cause cracks and they can cause a less desirable looking cheesecake in the end result. But in my baking method, I have not got a cracked cheesecake yet. Cracked cheesecakes actually come from baking it at too high of a temperature. What tends to happen is the eggs, they form within the cheesecake, and when it bakes, it tends to expand, and then it gets to a certain point and it just cracks. Oh, not only that, baking at too high of a temperature, but having too many eggs inside your cheesecake. Having too many eggs inside your cheesecake, it can almost make it like, it'll make it like eggy. It'll make it almost like foamy like type. And trust me, I've done that before. But that can cause cracks as well. So you want to stay away from that if you care that much about cracks. You don't want to constantly open the oven door, because another thing that could cause cracks is you having that hot cheesecake and then you send a burst of cool air over top of the cheesecake, and that'll just cause it to get off too. So you want to avoid that as well. That's pretty much it on my breakdown of keto cheesecakes. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, please hit me up below. I mean, I have over 2 years experience of baking. As I said, you know, crown 2 years of baking. So, you know, any questions you got as far as keto cheesecakes or anything else, just hit me up in the comment section and let me know. My no-bake cheesecake tends to be very popular, so I don't expect too many people to know to say they've tried my baked cheesecakes before. But for those that bought my cookbook, when I was in the process of making it, I did send out a bunch of different recipes for people to try, and the results came back great. They were saying they loved, and these were the baked cheesecakes, because inside my cookbook is only baked dessert. And if you're interested, there is a link below. You can see the full photos, nutrition breakdown, everything like that. But that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I will see you again soon.